interesting. But there's an amazing Australian story that I want to share with you if we don't get copyright. It's 3 o'clock in the morning in Australia, in Melbourne. I had a weird sleep, so I wanted to share this story with you. It's an amazing story of survival in the Australian outback. It's very controversial, so you can draw your own conclusions. Someone just walked into the desert in the middle of Australia, which is extremely dangerous. And you wouldn't survive normally, or you would. Just walking into the Australian desert is very remote. There's no food or water. And even Indigenous Australians have trouble walking into the desert. But this guy came from the United States, from Alaska actually, and he decided to walk into the desert with a Bible and water and a bit of food. And it's a remarkable story from 1999 actually. And so we can start watching it and see what you think. It's a bit controversial because the coppers were scared, that he wouldn't survive.
Back in 1999.
So,
Soaring temperatures.
hola Divina, ¿cómo estás? This is an amazing story that I wanted to share. It's incredible. 1999.
Can you imagine being all alone in the Australian outback with no food and water? Most people would find it a terrifying thought, but it's what American man Robert Bogucki did back in 1999.
Soaring temperatures, a lack of water, and sand dunes every 500 metres.
The likelihood of finding Robert alive is virtually nil.
When he plunged deep into the Great Sandy Desert on purpose, on a personal quest that triggered a media storm and a bizarre international search.
There are thousands of clues. There's only...
No, actually, this guy, Robert Bogucki, walked into the desert without any, well, he had a bit of water and food, but he actually went missing and it triggered a massive search. No, but the story is crazy. He just went for a walk, basically in the middle of nowhere.
Subject.
There's still a slim hope that the American adventurer, Robert Bogucki, may be alive.
That culminated in one of the most remarkable survival stories ever recorded.
How are you feeling?
Was an extremely irresponsible thing for him to do.
But the case raises so many questions. Why did Robert Bogucki do it? What did he learn when he pushed himself right to the brink of death?
I think he was at a stage where he needed to be found.
And why are we so fascinated by people who will gamble their one crack at life to go into the wilderness in search of meaning?
I stretched that it's whatever that was that sent me out there in the first place.
Most people have heard of Christopher McCandless, who starved to death in remote Alaska. But less known is this epic Australian survival story involving a man who's lived to tell the tale. My name's Erin Park, and 3 years ago I became fascinated by this strange saga. Welcome to Nowhere Man, the story of Robert Bogucki and survival in the Great Sandy Desert.
Amazing. This was incredible story, really. Was done a couple of weeks ago.
Our story starts in the tiny tropical town of Broome, where I've been a news reporter for almost 2 decades. It's an isolated dot on the northern coast of Australia, bordered by rugged, remote coastline to the north and a vast, dry desert to the south. It's July 1999 when police first get the tip-off. A blue bicycle has been found abandoned with a few bits of clothing and some water bottles on a remote track on the edge of the desert. Straight away, they're worried. It's a strange place for someone to be cycling, and there are footprints leading inland, straight into the Great Sandy Desert.
I heard that this guy had gone walkabout up a track outside a sandfire, and I thought, what hope has he got? They're looking for a body.
G'day, my Thomas.
Lindsay Greatorex is a Kimberley boy through and through, and back in 1999 he was working as a policeman in Broome.
So I'm a Derby boy. I'm an Ingana Jabba Jabba man. If you're on Aboriginal country looking for somebody lost, you have to have that Aboriginal involvement. Trackers know their country. They know the soil, they know the rock, the landscape.
As the search got underway, Lindsay was glad to hear that 3 senior Aboriginal men had been recruited to help as trackers.
The boys are they're about 100 metres in front of us, looking for his track. You can see it's fairly desolate country here. Why the hell he's out here is anyone's business.
They were led by a formidable Yalparija man from the desert named Meridu Walbity. Meridu was immediately puzzled as to why someone would have deliberately walked into the desert.
Why did man went into the desert? In the wrong place, in dangerous country.
Meridu and the other trackers guide the search party into the desert. And along for the ride is a young newspaper reporter called Ben Martin.
We crawled along at whatever the pace was that they could track these footprints. And whenever they lost the footprints, hand would go up, and that'd be a stop. And they'd get off and have a look around and walk around until they found the tracks again. And then it'd be this really enthusiastic point to the front, let's go again, everyone climb on, and off we go in convoy.
But the footprints appear to be a couple of weeks old, and Meridu suspects the mystery man might already be dead. So after a few days, the trackers head home, and the police press on, searching in their battered four-wheel drives. Meanwhile, back in Broome, police officers have a breakthrough. They discover a scrunched-up receipt deep in the bottom of a raincoat that had been left with the bike. The ghost has a name. Robert Bogucki.
Once you've got a name and we've got his date of birth, that was fantastic. We really then started to build a picture. He's born in 1966. He's only 33 years old.
Jeff Fuller is the officer in charge of Broome Police Station and overseeing efforts to try to bring the Alaskan out of the desert alive. He knows the clock is ticking to try to find this enigmatic Robert Bogucki before he succumbs to dehydration or exposure.
We say, as a rule of thumb, that 3 days without water and up to 30 days without food.
The situation says that he probably should be dead, but this guy's a bit different to whatever I've come across before.
Jeff gets hold of Robert's parents on the telephone. They live in Malibu, California, and they tell him that Robert is a fit, resourceful man who's trained as a paramedic and volunteer firefighter. But they also reveal some alarming news.
He'd sent a postcard from the Sandfire Roadhouse to his mother in California.
The postcard states that Robert was planning to cross the Great Sandy Desert and wouldn't be in touch for a while. But the most alarming thing was the date it was written.
He had gone into the desert 2 weeks before we'd known he was missing.
Robert Bogucki had gone out into the deadly desert, home to spiders, snakes and scorpions, on purpose, more than 2 weeks earlier.
The worst case scenario is that the adventurer has perished in that area and that we're not going to be able to bring him out.
By now, there are planes and helicopters involved in the search, and by the second week, it's costing around $10,000 a day.
And I think there was a sense that every time we went over a sand dune, if we weren't going to find Robert, then we were getting closer to the end of the search.
After almost 2 weeks of searching, policeman Jeff Fuller has to make an agonising decision. With no fresh signs of life, it's time to call the search off. And he has to break the news to Robert's girlfriend, Janet, who's flown all the way from the United States a couple of days earlier.
It was a difficult time, yeah. I didn't really want to tell her. What's running through your mind is, have I just committed that person to death out in the desert? Did I give him enough time?
The search was called off at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
At this stage, we've done everything we can do. We can't do any more. We've had helicopters, fixed-wing planes. We've had ground crews from the south, ground crews from the north.
Robert Bogucki's grieving girlfriend Janet understands. But then comes a twist that no one sees coming. As reporter Ben Martin gives Janet a lift to the airport to fly home, she drops a cryptic clue.
She leaned over and said to me, "The Green Berets are coming." I had no idea what she was talking about. And of course, that's when this story really took off and became a bit of an international spectacle.
8 members of the 1st Special Response Group and 3 tracker dogs arrived in Australia early this morning.
Robert Bogucki's family has recruited an American search team to try to retrieve his body at a cost of $80,000.
The latest exercise has left local police bemused. They fear the US squad may themselves become lost.
So they brought dogs with them. They had the 2 dogs. One was definitely a bloodhound.
Were they tough bush dogs?
Oh, well, maybe American bush. They had little booties made for them. Had these little leather boots made.
No one knew what to make of these brazen Yanks with their booty-wearing bloodhounds. And their leader, a cigar-sucking, stocky man in army fatigues, is Garrison St Clair.
Well, the police have done a very good job with what they had. They're law enforcement and they do the occasional search, okay? We have members on this team who do 40 to 50 searches a year.
I just thought, this looks like a cartoon. And of course, he didn't...
Hey, Michael Murray, how you going, mate? In Melbourne, I couldn't sleep. I had a funny nap, and everyone, welcome. This story was in 1999, and it's a remarkable survival story, but also controversial, because you think, who the hell is going to walk into the desert? I mean, I've been to Cooper Pedy and I've been to the desert, and I couldn't wait to get to the pub and have a beer or a meal, let alone getting lost. If you're from Australia, you know this is near Broome, but there's a story about this American guy as well. He was actually found out to be a con man. He was never in the army or anything, and he had been in jail, but that came out much later. But 80,000 was a lot of money back in 1999, you know. Where you from, Michael? I'll chuck it on and we'll continue to watch it. Such a good story, you know. Oh, right. I have Trafalgar. What a beautiful town. Actually, you know, far North Victoria in the border with South Australia. I've got an off-grid shed up there near the Victoria Desert, and I wouldn't venture far into the desert. G'day, Shannon. How you going? Shannon is in Vegas, and Carolina, welcome, sweetheart. And Thomas is in Ireland. None of us will walk into any bloody desert, that's for sure. But yeah, check this out. It's crazy. It's just an incredible story.
like being called Garrison. He insisted that people use his radio handle, which was Gunslinger. And I think for a moment people lost sight of the fact that there was a fellow missing in the desert, and everyone focused on this character, Garrison St Clair.
The story's now got all the makings of a tabloid sensation. A missing man in the Australian outback, an international search mission, the distressed blonde girlfriend, and a small town unsure whether to laugh at the spectacle or cry for a man potentially dead in the desert.
How cool.
Because by this point, most people believe that Robert Bogucki is most likely dead. He's been alone in the desert for 5 weeks with barely any food and water, much longer than humans are supposed to be able to survive. But within hours of arriving in the desert, the Americans make a shocking discovery. They find fresh footprints, just visible in the soft sand.
After 4 weeks alone in the desert, the Alaskan is striding purposefully along an oil exploration track.
Events start to cascade quickly. On day 3 of the American search, the team finds a bundle of Robert's belongings.
An empty water bottle, boxer shorts and clothing, and a Bible, the only physical evidence of Mr Bogucki's remarkable desert trek.
No, mate, I can't figure out why he's leaving all this equipment here.
I think there was a real sense that A, Robert might be nearby, but B, Robert might be in a lot of trouble. The idea that Robert would abandon his Bible drew people to the conclusion that, hey, maybe he's abandoned his faith, he's given up.
The search ramps up with added urgency.
Without his kid, I rate his chance of survival as 72 hours or less out here.
Then, on day 4, everything changes. The searchers are out on foot when they spot a line of rocks spelling out the word help.
And of course, as soon as that discovery was made, one of the Americans got on the radio, radioed back to base camp.
They wait nervously for base camp to respond.
And that's when the news came through.
The guy's been located. He's en route to Broome on a helicopter.
Robert Bogucki had been found and found alive.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Robert Bogucki is emaciated and frail, but miraculously, he is alive. He somehow survived for more than 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, much of it without any food or water. And Ben was consumed by the same curiosity people still have around Robert Bogucki. Why did he do it? Had he been on some sort of religious pilgrimage? Or was he trying to test his survival skills to prove he could live off the land? Or was it something more ambiguous, like a desire to get away from people and society that was so strong that it was worth dying for? Keen for answers, a few years ago I made contact with Robert and his partner Janet, who live in a wood cabin in the forest in central Alaska. And after lots of emails, we meet up a couple of times during their regular holidays to Australia. They're fascinating people, very smart and funny, but also pretty private. But eventually, Robert and Janet invite me to visit them at their home in Alaska. It's a long and expensive trip, and I'm not 100% sure Robert Bogucki will actually even give me an interview. But hey, who wants to die wondering? I'm only there for 5 days, and it isn't until the final day that Robert and Janet agree to sit down for recorded interviews. Do you remember, like, when you were a teenager, were you rebellious at all?
In what way?
In your behaviour, in following social norms and your parents' rules and so on?
I question everything, if that's what you mean.
As Robert grew up, he had a lot going for him. Raised in a well-to-do, close-knit family in Malibu, California. As a teenager, he retained a strong Catholic faith and he got into a prestigious university. But the whole time, he was wrestling with a pervasive sense of despair and disillusionment. To him, society felt shallow and greedy and headed in a bad direction, and God seemed to be missing in action. There's a long history of humans fasting in a bid to achieve spiritual strength and to feel connected with God, and this is what Robert decides to do. The perfect time comes in 1999 when he and Janet are on a cycling trip around Australia.
The initial intention was to just find a place in the middle of the desert just to sit for a week and fast at that point and contemplate the universe. Whether I lived or not, I will be, unsatisfied with this life if I don't do it.
Robert doesn't want to die, but he's okay with the fact that he might.
You say it's high stakes and like it's a big, gamble or something, but really it's just, became, I need to do this.
After Janet flies back to the United States, Robert plunges alone into the desert. On the 3rd day, he stops eating. I get the feeling Robert almost enjoyed the physical pain of fasting and pushing his body in this extreme environment. For him, it was evidence of progress, of growth.
A lot of survival is dropping the mirror, dropping the microphone, dropping the camera, and not watching yourself, selfie stick. Here I am out here walking through the woods.
I agree with that.
That's all attached to the
But
ego.
you can do it in your backyard, mate. You don't have to go into the desert.
Drop all that and just be out there.
Yeah.
The mental clutter falls away as he focuses on the next step and the next sand dune.
I had feelings out there in the desert too that My spirit has wanted to do this thing for a long time, longer than a lifetime. These are age-old questions to answer. A good analogy would be stripping the bark off the tree, because you just want to strip off all of your parts and get down to the essence, and find out what that essence is. Find out your basic self.
I feel like this is something a lot of people aspire to try to find clarity and a clearer sense of self and a feeling of well-being. You only have to look at Instagram to see how preoccupied we all are with it. But few of us would go to such extreme lengths as Robert Bogucki to find it. After a few weeks in the desert, Robert's body is feeling the strain of dehydration and malnutrition. At one point, he comes to a natural kind of a sand bowl, and he decides to stay there for a week, not speaking, not eating, not drinking. And he experiences a kind of elation and a feeling of peace.
Clarity of mind seems to be a pretty common thing that comes to you after you realize that you're not going to die from not eating. I think it's just the body preparing itself. You know, I'm not part of this world anymore. You have to remember that your life is only a short blip on the...
Yeah, but the thing is, the search party was huge and it was costing like $10,000 a day to look for him, only that he didn't know people were looking for him, but that's what sparks the controversial part
Lineal
of it.
scale.
Good to see you guys.
He feels a sense of fulfillment. God has tested him with moments of despair and revealed himself in times of silence. And his faith is so strong that rather than turning back, Robert decides to keep walking, determined to complete his planned 500-kilometre trek across the Great Sandy Desert. But his physical state is deteriorating. He's now gaunt and exhausted, and at times he feels like death is close.
I remember walking down the creek and just resting from rock to rock that I could lean on. Okay, you know, you've had long enough here. Go to the next rock, you know.
On day 41 of his journey, Robert marks out that help sign with rocks. He has mixed feelings about whether he wants to be rescued. Part of him wants to press on, confident that he can make it. But he knows that that's all wrapped up with his ego, an ingrained reluctance to ask people for help. And that's a demon that Robert has long wanted to conquer.
That would be like saying I've failed. And then I said, well, that's ridiculous. It's not failing. You're afraid to let people in. You need to do something about your fear.
So Robert lays out the help sign, and within 48 hours comes a life-changing moment. A media helicopter chances upon Robert as he's picking his way through a rocky gully and sipping manky water he scooped from a puddle. The chopper shatters the silence as the news crew rushes over and starts filming him.
I was at base camp and that's when I heard the shout, he's been found, he's been found.
Robert's whisked out of the desert by the news crew, who feed him a banana and then film him vomiting it up and bypass the nearby search base to deliver their scoop straight to Broome. Robert had no idea that people had been searching for him, and he's got no idea how big a story it had become.
He emerged from the bush into the arms of a media maelstrom.
The backlash was pretty fierce. A carload of people went by and yelled out the window, "Who's going to pay Bogucki's holiday?"
Reactions to the Americans' epic story have been mixed, a combination of hate mail, skepticism and reluctant admiration for his feat of survival.
Starting out, I was walking probably 20, 25 kilometers a day. Sit down during the heat and wait till the evening and try to walk some more. The water wasn't too hard to come by at first. I was coming across billabongs and digging for water. Was pretty easy to get up until getting to around the McClarty Hills, and then water kind of got scarce there. Food I had lasted for a few days. Basically, after that, I couldn't tell you what exactly I was eating, what plants, flower type things. They were just a few things here and there that were wet to keep my mouth moist, you know.
We're happy campers. There's no question about it.
I want to say g'day in the middle of it. G'day from Melbourne. You can see my butt drop. I look like a tarot reader, but I'm not. Actually, Michael, I bought my shed for $65,000, and it was well, it's off grid, you know. I've got like solar panels and water tanks and stuff, but I've been in the desert. I mean, some people go with Aboriginal Australia, some don't. I don't get into the argument, but you know what? You gotta say, excuse me, to walk into someone's land. In Australia, Aboriginal people do the smoke ceremony, and you walk through the smoke, and that means that the spirit of the land recognizes you, and next time you go past, they go, yep, I know you, you know. Yeah, so but anyway, that's the Aboriginal beliefs. And then I don't think he even knew that, because the story is like, I have mixed emotions. I'm sure you guys do too. These are my reading glasses. And these are my reading glasses. But I had to share these with you guys. So funny. Makes me want to talk about it. That's so funny, passerby. It's hilarious.
Yeah, what a feel-good thing, huh?
It's worse.
An American alive.
While there's overwhelming joy and relief that Robert has been rescued in this so-called miracle in the desert, there is also a fierce backlash, with some politicians and media commentators slamming his behaviour as selfish and reckless.
And it was an extremely irresponsible thing for him to do.
I certainly wouldn't like to see someone profiting from that sort of experience without making sure the bills were paid here.
I feel bad that a lot of people came looking for me, that there was so much spent.
The thing is, Robert never intended to be searched for, and he was quite happy to be left to either live or die on his desert quest.
I mean, they're southeastern.
But his very personal search for meaning was now very much public property. Robert's actions hit a nerve because he did something that most of us would never be willing to do. He felt lost, and he was willing to put everything on the line to try to feel found. When I get back from Alaska, I spend some more time with Aboriginal elder Meridu Walbity, the Yalparidja man who helped search for Robert Bogucki back in 1999. And he takes me out into the desert, camping. It's taken me a long time to actually get out here into the desert, and I'm really glad I made the effort, because I feel like you can't really talk about what Robert Bogucki did without being here. So there's a biting cold wind blowing, and you can see for hundreds of kilometres. As we huddle by the campfire, Meridu keeps asking about the American man, sometimes chuckling about what Robert Bogucki did, but sometimes sounding angry. And during that trip, Meridu tells me something that changes everything. Meridu grew up on Madu country, deep in the Great Sandy Desert. In the 1960s, his extended family were among the last generation to be living a traditional lifestyle, untouched by white colonisation. And then, when Meridu was about 10 years old, something happened that would bring that life to an end. See, Meridu had one younger brother, a cheerful, energetic little boy.
We were just growing up, 6, 7 years old.
One day, the little boy drank from a small waterhole, and it happened suddenly, Meridu says. The little boy began to struggle to breathe. Meridu remembers his mother cradling the little boy on the ground.
I don't know what he had, you know. I was like, stop breathing, and then he ran out of wind. I don't know what sickness he had. He died from just natural sickness. A good spirit got him, you know.
I'm so sorry that you lost your brother like that.
And Dad and Mom would try everything, you know, singing. Mom and Dad singing, trying to get him back. No, too late. He's gone. He left us out in the desert.
In case you didn't catch that, Meridu's saying his mum and dad sang to their youngest son, trying to harness the spirits to bring him back, but it was no good. Meridu says his grief-stricken mother wailed in the nighttime as the boy lay silent and still under a small tree. The parents knew they would have to leave him there. Most of the other families had already gone, moved into the white man world. And for Meridu's family, the loss of their son was the final straw. It was time for them to leave the desert for good.
So we cried him, and that's it. Let's go.
The family began their long, slow walk across the Great Sandy Desert to a new world. So Meridu finds it strange that non-Indigenous people romanticise life in the desert. He's glad that Robert Bogucki came out alive. But for Meridu, Robert is also the embodiment of carelessness, of privileged people who don't appreciate how precious it is to be alive because they've never watched on as the desert left a loved one dead. The wider world's never cared about Meridu's survival story. He's only asked to help when a white man goes missing. It feels like there's unfinished business. And I start to discuss the idea with Robert and Janet. Maybe it's time for them to return to the Great Sandy Desert, to where this strange saga played out, to meet the Aboriginal trackers who helped search for them. And they agree. They want to say thank you to the Aboriginal trackers who helped out in 1999 and try to wrap things up on this long ago drama. But as they book their flights, I start to feel a bit anxious. I have no idea how this meeting is going to go. A few months later, we're all in a car together. Robert, Janet, Meridu and me, rumbling down the highway towards the spot where Robert began his desert quest almost a quarter of a century ago. When Robert and Meridu meet, they are respectful but reserved. It feels like there's a reckoning ahead. At one point, when we're pulled over, Meridu beckons me over and he tells me something in a low voice. We're going to stop soon, he tells me, for an important ceremony. The American needs to apologise, he says. He was wrong to come into this dangerous country alone without asking the traditional owners and risking death. Finally, as the day's heating up and tummies are rumbling, we stop to have lunch. And then Meridu tells me it's time for the smoking ceremony to start. Meridu orders Robert to walk through the fragrant smoke. To breathe in a little bit of smoke.
Yeah, breathe in there. Yeah, it's a smoking ceremony when you go past next time. Spirit will smell you. I know these people. I'll let them pass.
It's an ancient ritual that Meridu says will keep us safe and let the spirits of the country know that we're here, something Robert didn't know to do back in 1999. And then, Meridu says, it's time for Robert to apologise. The wind suddenly picks up, whipping the hot coals of the campfire. And Robert looks anxious. It's clear he's expected to pay his respects and somehow try to make amends for entering these lands and breaching the cultural protocol all of those years ago.
Thank you, my friend. I very much appreciate you letting me walk through your yard to learn the things I needed to learn. And thank you for coming to look for me and helping me through it from a distance. I will take this knowledge. I won't forget it.
Robert has not apologised, but he's been gracious and humble. And in that moment, as he stands before Meridu, It feels like he's taking one for the team.
For all the clueless white people, the Gadiya people, who move around Australia, these vast landscapes, without knowing whose land they're on and no concept of what's gone before, and possessing none of the survival skills that are no longer needed and no longer valued. The men hug, and the tension is broken.
We must walk together. Walk together. You're a good man. You know, you give something back.
On the long drive home, I find myself thinking more about Robert's disappearance in the desert. Over the years, there's been a lot of speculation about how he managed to survive for such a long period of time without food and water. Most people I've interviewed put it down to Robert's physical fitness and steely determination. But Robert reckons it's to do with his faith in God, based on a love of life rather than a fear of death. And most people I've interviewed reckon Robert would not have survived much longer if that helicopter hadn't found him when it did. But Robert reckons he would have made it out alive. But he says it's not something he's lost sleep over, believing it was all ultimately in God's hands anyway.
How did you survive?
The simple answer is by focusing on the good and not the bad. Focusing on the life aspect as opposed to the things that sucked energy from me.
The saga of Robert Bogucki turned into a television spectacular and polarised opinion the world over about whether it's selfish or inspired to risk your life for enlightenment. But looking back now, the whole thing seems to reveal a massive blind spot.
How we all cared so much about a survival story lasting 43 days, while overlooking tens of thousands of years of human survival in the very same landscape. Stories like Meridu's, only told around campfires, among the handful of old people who remember what it's like to live in another world.
Crazy, isn't it? Like what I think, you know what I reckon? He survived because a helicopter found him. Otherwise, he'll be another story lost in the desert. He was lucky that they went out to get him, because otherwise there's no way you survive in the Australian desert. No way, Jose. Like there's no enlightenment. It's just you gone with the wind. Gone into like the foxes, the everything that is predatory out in the desert in Australia. Look, I've been to the breakaways in Australia and I've seen like footprints, and I'm always looking to track what is. Even in my property out in the desert, in the Little Desert National Park, I had a 1.5 acres there, and sometimes I check, you know, what cross paths in the but yeah, he was a firefighter, you know, and he was a fit person, and he also had conviction, you know. But the thing is, we know what the Australian heat does to us. It could have been winter, because if it was the summer, actually I missed what month it was. Well, that's an Aboriginal elder. Here in Australia, you've got the Indigenous people that have their beliefs, you know, and I've got many Aboriginal friends, white friends, Irish friends, all kinds of friends with all different beliefs. You know, you hear stories and you go, wow, you know. I don't know. I think that I've been out there, and you see the wild horses, the wildlife, and Aboriginal people actually have grass that the cattle can feed from, and the grass has water. And they also have ways of knowing where the water is. So when he was telling about finding water, I think that's extraordinary. Like he was really smart to find water, because I've been shown places where Aboriginal people used to walk past, and then they'll leave like a plate and a cup and stuff like that for the next tribe to come past and drink from that. But, you know, there were markers where the water was. So for him to find water like that, I mean, he came across billabongs and stuff like that. But he was lucky. I put it down to luck. To luck, and when the Americans touched down in Australia, the news went out, you know, because, you know, they're trying to grab news. That's how they found him. Imagine looking down and seeing a bloke walking around half, you know. I mean, it's such an incredible story. Then they did a podcast about this American guy with a cigar. We can try and have a look. It's amazing, actually, because I've been in the desert. I live near the desert, and it's bloody hot. But yeah, it's different. I don't know if this got copyright, but
isn't it satisfying taking something that's...
Anyway, bloody commercials. Some are good, eh? Some make me laugh, but I wouldn't, you know, cold as hell, absolutely. Like, I remember having the fire on in the desert, up in the little desert. In January, middle of summer, we had the fire going because it was very cold, you know. I don't know if Michael's here. He said he was renovating.
It's one of the most bizarre incidents ever to happen in Outback Australia that you've probably never heard of. It's the moment back in 1999 when an American man disappeared into the Great Sandy Desert, triggering a media storm and one of the biggest and strangest searches that Australia had ever seen. Right from the beginning, there was something different about this case. It was a smart young man who had everything to live for, but he'd set off on foot alone and seemingly he didn't want to be found. This is the subject of the new season of the ABC podcast Expanse. It's called Nowhere Man, and all 6 episodes are available now to binge. But if there is anything that I have learned in 7 years of making If You're Listening, it's that there is always a couple of stories that are incredible but don't quite fit into the natural flow of the show. We asked Erin Park, the host of this season of Expanse, whether there were any great stories that she couldn't squeeze in, and it turns out there was. G'day, Erin.
All right, g'day, Matt.
Erin, you're coming to us from Broome. Why are you in Broome and how long have you been there?
I've been up here almost 20 years, which was never the intention, like a lot of people that end up in remote northern Australia. But the stories just keep getting better and better. And some of the best stories aren't happening now. They actually happened years ago. And that's the stuff I really love. And that's how I ended up going down this rabbit hole 3 years ago, this sort of slight obsession with a man that went missing in the desert and the meaning of life, really.
Give us a short précis of what we can expect in the Expanse itself. It's the hunt for this man.
Yeah.
I want to get to the specific story in a moment, but give us a brief précis of what's in the full season.
Well, it's a rollicking tale of outback survival. It's about some weird stuff that went down in 1999. Do you remember the case vaguely? Robert Bogucki, the weirdo Alaskan that went into the desert. He ended up being nicknamed Kooky Bogucki because his behaviour was just so unconventional. So basically, he goes out there on purpose. Unlike most people that go lost in Outback Australia, he knew where he was and he wanted to be there, which made it very difficult for the authorities that were looking for him. What I've ended up doing is getting in touch with Robert Bogucki because, spoiler alert, he did survive and went to Alaska to stay with him. I ended up convincing him to come all the way back to the Great Sandy Desert, and that's where this tale really takes a twist.
Sounds fantastic. So, I want to talk about this man named Gunslinger, which, I mean, fantastic. So far fantastic. So who is Gunslinger and how did he come to be tied up in this story?
We really have saved the creme de la creme for your fabulous podcast, Matt, because we got to the bottom of this quite late in the piece and it didn't quite slot in the podcast, but I'm so glad that I'm not having to go to the grave without telling this story. So basically,
that's what we're about. We're all about the story that you can't stop thinking about, but doesn't fit into the actual show.
Yeah. So basically what happens, Robert Bogucki's missing in the desert and there's this official WA police search that costs $10,000 a day. There's helicopters, there's planes, and it's so expensive and they're starting to realise that Robert doesn't want to be found. He's probably dead because he's been out there for 3 weeks. So the official search is called off. And all the locals, they think that's the end of it. This guy's dead. It's just one of those sad, weird things that happens. But then his family, who are quite well-to-do in Malibu, California, spent $80,000 recruiting this top private US search team to travel all the way to Australia, go out into the desert to try to retrieve his body. And it just turns into this circus. The media coverage escalated. It was making the nightly news. You had crews flying in from all over the world because suddenly, I think with the Americans arriving, there was an element of the absurd about it. And a large part of that was the man in charge, who was a man called Garrison St. Clair. People describe him as being like a caricature of an American, larger than life, wearing army fatigues. He was always like smoking a stogie cigar. He talked in military parlance, and he turned up with these search cadaver dogs, like bloodhounds, and they were so worried about their feet getting burnt in the hot sand of the desert, they had little leather booties made, Garrison organised. So he sort of became the public face of this new stage of the search for Robert Bogucki. He was on the TV news every night, and he helped find Robert Bogucki. It was actually a Channel 9 chopper, but it was very much because of the Americans that the media was out there. And so Garrison St. Clair becomes the public face, really, of this, what became known as the miracle in the desert.
At one level, he's a tough guy, and at another level, he's kind of sweet because he's putting...
Sorry, chopper in Australia is helicopter for the rest of the world, I reckon.
On his dogs. So what did the local police think of Gunslinger and his team?
They were worried that Garrison St. Clair and the Americans were going to die in the desert because...
Of course they were.
Because, like, things were just getting weirder by the day, and they were like, oh, my God, yes, okay, we'll help you. They sent some WA police officers out with the Americans, but there was this feeling that, like, the whole thing was just, like, a bit weird and that it probably wasn't going to be successful because Robert was most likely dead. I think everyone says that they were really charmed by Garrison. Apparently, he sounds like he's would have been great company. I've not met him. I've not been able to interview him, but even going by the TV footage, he just was like a great storyteller, a great yarn spinner. Sounds like he would have been great fun to have a bottle of red wine with, sort of that sort of a character. But his military history was a big part of his identity. He just screamed US military. And it was only as a little bit of time passed after Robert found that is the story that all began to unravel. It turns out Garrison St. Clair was not who he said he was.
Okay. I was literally about to ask you about his military history, but you're saying that maybe he didn't have as much experience as he claimed that he did.
So the team he led was called the First Special Response Group, and they were made up of some of the top people, paramedics, like trackers, like they were real specialists from all across the United States that would come together in a voluntary capacity to deal with mainly body retrievals in emergency situations. Now, there's no doubt that Garrison was involved in a lot of these operations and got really good results. But what he said he was ex-military, special operations, whatever that means. He said he'd been in the French Legion. He said he'd been to Georgetown Law School, and he told these tales of daring do. Like, he told one person that I interviewed that he'd been involved in a secret operation to retrieve the kidnapped daughter of an ambassador in an unnamed European country. And I think people sort of took him at face value because he did seem very convincing. But it was actually after Robert Bogucki was found that the whole thing started to unravel. So the Miami Herald actually got in touch with him and just wanted to do like a profile of like, we haven't heard of you before. You've obviously making international news headlines. Let's do a bit of a story together. So I've interviewed this guy, a wonderful man called Curtis Morgan, who's still a senior reporter at the Miami Herald. And he described for me the process as he started to chat to Garrison, just doing basic checks and balances.
He wasn't.
And even the most basic elements were not quite holding up.
There were just a lot of questions. And I think it's just standard operating procedure. Somebody claims that they're a ex-military. You want to verify that. And that's that could not be verified. And so that really intrigued my interest.
So the story quickly falls apart. Garrison was never in the military. He was never in the French Foreign Legion. He'd never been to Georgetown Law School. And Curtis Morgan ends up publishing this fantastic series of investigative stories. And he has this great line that basically says, Garrison St Clair never served in the military, but he did serve jail time. He'd been convicted of the federal felony offence of mail fraud. So basically running a scam where he was charging people to publish ads in a business directory that didn't exist. And Garrison, it turns out, had been involved in a whole stream of court cases with very serious allegations. When this reporter confronted Garrison St Clair, he said he couldn't really talk about his past because he was a spy, which seems to be like the go-to get out of jail card for a lot of people that are doing slightly dodgy things.
I mean, look, maybe he is really, Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible stuff, and he's disappeared into the ether, and he really was a super secret operative. But there was absolutely no record, and except for the criminal records and the arrests, and so those can be verified, but the heroic side of his story just didn't stand up.
This story is starting to feel a little bit familiar. I feel like I've run into stories like this surrounding the Trump administration a fair bit. People who sort of go, oh, I can't really talk about what I used to do, but it was very serious stuff.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, can't really talk about it, but you can trust that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so when this starts to, be published, how did people react to it?
People were shocked. And people were really hurt as well because, like I mentioned, Garrison was a really charismatic guy, and a lot of people, the volunteers that had signed up with him to do these international missions to try and help families in really desperate situations, they felt utterly betrayed because they'd spent time in the field with Garrison. They'd had dinners with Garrison, they drank wine with Garrison, he'd met their families and so on. I tracked down a guy called David Kovar, who I don't think's ever done an interview before. And he was basically Garrison's 2IC in the first special response group. And he was involved in the Robert Bogucki search. And he told me that it was during the Robert Bogucki operation in the Great Sandy Desert that he first started to sort of have alarm bells going off, that maybe Garrison wasn't quite the man that he said he was. So
I and the rest of the team were out searching, and we start hearing on the radio that Garrison had taken one of the all-wheel drive vehicles way down a track where there likely wasn't anything to be found, and had driven it so hard that they had to get 2 different helicopter flights in to get spare parts for the vehicle to get them back out. And the reason that was frustrating was that by doing that, they were putting the people that were in that vehicle at risk.
So they're out in the desert, and basically Garrison's making these kind of slightly reckless decisions that an experienced search and rescue guy would not be doing. And so David Kovar starts to suspect that maybe Garrison isn't who he says he was. And then it's just a few years later, after the truth comes out in the newspapers, that Garrison St Clair is found dead in quite unusual circumstances.
Okay, what were those circumstances? I'm worried about what this is going to be.
So basically the truth is revealed that Garrison St Clair is a bit of a con man, and he starts to withdraw from search and rescue operations, and everyone's quite shocked and appalled at what's gone on. he ends up dying the way, almost in a way that he lived, which was immersed in a bit of a scam. He has a friend from the search and rescue community, is the way it's been explained to me, who owned a holiday house in Mexico, and he convinces her to go and stay there. At this point, he's very isolated because he's been publicly shamed, and he uses what is apparently a bit of a loophole in the Mexican law that, along the lines of possession is 9/10 of the law, to actually take over this property and cut her out, say she's not welcome, and he continues to live in this holiday house in Mexico. And that's where he is discovered dead in 2003. And by this time, like I said, he's very much alone. And it's actually David Kovar that ends up paying for his funeral, because he just feels like the situation is just a bit tragic, and the idea of him having a pauper's funeral, he doesn't want to live with that. And so, I asked David Kovar how he felt about the whole situation after all of this came to light.
It is sad. He did it to himself. He alienated a community of people that will forgive a lot of sort of idiosyncrasies in people's behavior. But he absolutely did that community harm. Because of his bravado, because of his lying, he caused reputational and personal harm to a lot of people.
I think what he's describing there, it feels really familiar, I think, to anyone that's been let down by someone that you trusted, that maybe doesn't have to be such extreme circumstances as you faked a military history. But it just seems like a really tragic kind of scenario to me, that I guess anyone that's living a double life, living deception, living a lie, like what a lonely headspace that must be. And that's the thing that's come across really strongly from everyone that was involved in this saga. They're like, yes, he did the wrong thing, but I still kind of really care about this guy. Here's how David described it in terms of the decision to pay for his funeral at the end of the day.
As much as he was a fraud, his ability to get people to come together, the ability to get us through customs when otherwise it might have been difficult, the ability to get local resources, that was instrumental in our success. And so there's a blessing and a curse sort of thing going on here, but absolutely bigger than life. And I think a number of us were very disappointed when the sort of story started coming apart. Disappointed in him, but also disappointed in ourselves for sort of falling for it.
What was the cause of death?
It was not foul play. It was natural causes, believed to be a heart condition. He was a textbook walking example of an unhealthy lifestyle. I guess, chain smoking, cigars, being a little overweight, and living a lie is not a great sort of trio of things for a long and healthy life.
No, right. So it wasn't as though, someone that he had, wronged in some way or conned, caught up with him. It was his lifestyle rather than his personality, I suppose.
Well, look, to be honest, I still am making some inquiries, and this might end up the next series of the podcast if we do get to the bottom of things in that regard, but I will keep you posted.
So what can we take away from all of this in terms of, what lessons can we learn from the fact that this man managed to convince the Australian media and the global media that he was an expert in this area that he actually didn't have any expertise in?
I think that, to me, where this fits in the broader scheme of things is about the folklore and mythology of outback Australia, which is just rich with these larger-than-life characters. And even though he was American, Garrison slotted in very well with kind of this tall tales of outback Australia. And then it turned out it was all too good to be true. We like to romanticize the renegades and the mavericks, and he slotted in really nicely with all that. And you know what? At the end of the day, he actually got things done, and he did help save lives. And so it's a kind of an interesting, moral thing about how we think about people like that. I think, can I just mention one thing that really still tickles my fancy after all these years up here? Have you heard the phrase, the 3 M's?
No.
Can you guess what they are? So this is referring to the strange characters that turn up in remote Northern Australia.
Oh, right. Madmen, magicians.
I love that. Magicians less so.
I should say that what I mean is the remarkable people, the people that brings, the people notice
the magic
when they arrive.
So usually the 3 M's are missionaries, mercenaries, and misfits. So you're up here saving
souls. That makes
souls.
so much more sense than magician.
And mad.
Okay, yep.
We might have to turn it into the 6 M's based on this conversation.
Yeah.
So people are up here saving souls. They're up here to make a quick buck. Or the biggest demographic, and maybe this is where I've started to fit after all these years, is the misfits. And this whole saga of Robert Bogucki, including Garrison St Clair, everyone fits in with being one of the 3 M's. And I kind of love Outback Australia for that.
Can I tell you a story? My favourite little Outback Australia story that I have recently come across and couldn't get into one of my episodes. Okay, so we were doing this episode that was about the rare earths trade and the rare earth elements around the world. And I was looking at Australia's biggest rare earth mine, which is in sort of the southern half of the goldfields area of WA. So Laverton is this town, and I was looking up the history of Laverton. The town was originally called British Flag when it was basically just an intersection. It was called British Flag for whatever reason. And then around the 1900s, a man showed up saying that he was a doctor and his last name was Laver, and he showed up on a bicycle. And this is a town that is hundreds of kilometres from any other place that he could have come from. But he showed up on a bicycle and he said that he was the doctor. He was a doctor and he became the town's doctor. And apparently they were so taken with this man that they decided to name the town after him. Perhaps they thought that British Flag was a bit of a silly name for a town. They decided to rename the town after Dr. Laver. Dr. Laver then left the town, moved to London, where he got married to a woman, and then moved back to Laverton with her. And I can't imagine what that transition must have been like for that woman. She's in London. This Australian man shows up, says he's a doctor. She's obviously taken with him, falls in love and marries him. And he says, there's a town named after me.
This is funny as hell.
In
Come
Australia.
to my town.
What? My town? Why don't we go and move there? And she would have
I
been
am the
like,
king of the
fantastic,
town.
this sounds great. And then she would have, taken the boat to Perth and gone, wow, this seems pretty remote. And he's like, oh, no, we're not there yet. And then he's gone to Kalgoorlie and she's like, oh, this is a pretty small town. I suppose it's fine. Oh, no, we're not there yet. And then he strikes off days into the desert before he finally comes to Laverton and they settle there, and that is apparently the origin story of the name of the town of Laverton.
I see similar things with women being dragged up to the Pilbara to work in the mining industry with their husbands as well sometimes. I actually thought you were going to tell the story of the Japanese death cult that was testing sarin at a cattle station in the goldfields, but that is a whole other can of worms. Google it. I tell you what, the story's buried in Outback Australia. They're absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, Google Japanese death cult goldfields and you won't regret it.
I don't want to Google it, Erin. I want you to tell me about it. I think you'll have to come back and tell me about it sometime. One last thought. I know, you've probably got things to do. One last thought on this. It's fascinating that America produces these people who have this otherworldly confidence and the ability to convince other people that they are this incredible type of person who is able to achieve these incredible types of things. Something that I feel like is kind of alien in Australia. I don't know that we respond all that well to that level of confidence. And yet also, I kind of feel like Australians would forgive this kind of character more. We just kind of be like, he had a crack, didn't he?
I absolutely agree. I think especially in regional areas, people do take you at face value because everyone comes from a long way away.
Yeah.
People turn up here for a lot of sometimes dubious reasons. And you know what? If you turn up in good faith and you can get things done, it helps if you have a work ethic and a sense of humour and like to drink a beer, people don't ask too many questions. about your past, which is why, I've been on the run from the law for a very long time.
I was going to say, well, I won't ask any questions about your past, Erin. Erin, thank you so much for being with us. I'll let you go back into hiding. Thanks so much for chatting to us.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's been a joy.
Funny, eh? That's funny too, the commercial, but how's that for a story? Thank you for being here. I wanted to share it because it's hilarious. The Irish, imagine. Australia has funny stories. But yeah, the ABC is funny. I listen to the ABC a lot because I'm in regional Victoria, in Horsham and all that area, the Wimmera. It's hilarious. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in Australia. 4:16. But yeah, no, it's been crazy. It's been crazy story. I've been in the outback, but everybody that hears story like passerby said, it was interesting. Yeah, it could be like the English flag, the intersection, But yeah, I know that there's I'm in Melbourne and there's a Melbourne in Canada, I think. Oh gosh. I had fun with our story, that's for sure. Especially the bloke just going in the middle of nowhere, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Some people don't know the story. I came to Australia in 1989. So in 99, I remember because when they found the bike, that was interesting to me, that the only thing they found was a bike. And I thought, who the hell takes a bike to the desert? You had trouble like walking in the sand, let alone, having, yeah, but it's interesting. So funny. I keep getting the TV on my eyes. But yeah, I've been resting. My leg surgery is getting good. But that story is crazy. Anyway, I better get either a cup of coffee. I was going to drive to Kmart, 24-hour Kmart. And 24-hour Coles in Burwood. Ah, so funny. All right, my darlings. I'm also knitting a scarf now. Since I finished my poncho. Yeah, pretty good. I'll show you my ponchos hanging there. There it is. It's good to finish things that you start. Yeah, I was healing alright, but the bloods came back not a bit weird. I don't know. There's no doctors here or nurses in my YouTube channel. But yeah, my ALP levels with this alkaline phosphate were really high when I had the tumor on the leg, on the bone. And then it went down. No, sorry, it kept going up. And now it's 137. So the marker is 110. And it's either your liver or your bones. And so my phosphate's also really high. And then my iron is extremely low, 64, 69. The iron went down from 140. But because I lost a lot of blood. But yeah, I bought liverwurst pate. Because I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, otherwise I'll be dead. I don't think. I mean, I eat so many vegetables and lentils and beans and stuff like that, but yeah. I don't know what to make out of it. But it's Australia long weekend. We have the footy final. Geelong and the Brisbane Lions. I follow the rugby. Yeah, I think I'll, I'm excited because I got my Mikey. Because I drive everywhere, but the traffic in Melbourne is getting too much for me. So I got my Mikey. I'm excited about it. I might jump on the train, you know. Ta-da! So cool. I had one, you know. Everybody has a Mikey here, but who goes on a train and a bus? Not many people. But then, you know, when you look at the guide to public transport, it's so cool. It gives you a map and it's free on the weekends. Yeah, and it tells you who and what and how much, and but now you get it on your phones as well. But I thought I need some excitement in my life. Imagine your excitement is a Mikey. I think I really need a bloody life. Because if you get excited about having a train pass, you need something different. I don't know whether the public transport is all that good in Australia. I don't think it is. I don't think that we like sometimes you gotta go into the city to go somewhere else, or you gotta go to a station called Richmond, which is too short of the city, just to go to Camberwell. You gotta go and then take another train out. So the city is basically where you get all the trains, you know. But it's just weird. Very weird. Public transit. Even in the city, you know, like you got beautiful weather coming up. I thought I might catch a train into the city, and Melbourne is so beautiful by the river there. But yeah, I haven't been out anyway. And I don't know why YouTube hid your pub transit. Your message has been hidden for some reason. So weird. Oh really? But Canberra's really small compared to Melbourne, I think. Buses are okay. I love trains, but it's been replaced by, you know, buses all the time because they're fixing. To have a Guinness, Thomas. You know me well. I love my Guinness beer. It's been so long since I had any drinks or alcohol. But yeah, I forget they exist. But never forget about my Guinness. Yeah. Be good to go on the train, Shannon. My life artist. I don't know about the reception, you know, like it's all so grainy when I go live and I'm walking around the city or somewhere. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when it moves. I need a new phone soon. I reckon the Google Pro phone is pretty good when you go live. This look like I got it's a tree of life and stars and moon and stuff. But it looks like a bloody halo on my head. Oh, I needed a pick me up, you know. Good old Timo. Yeah. Oh, you know what? In Netherby, where I am, it's so good, the internet. Saint Gracie. Santa Graciela. I was trying to get a backdrop that is nice, and now I've got a bloody halo in my head. I'm no saint. Oh, sometimes. Look at my excitement. It's getting a Mikey, like a metro ticket to go around. The good thing is I can go to Ballarat, which is a city an hour away from here, 2 hours. And then you can go to certain places with a Mikey, with a ticket on the train. I haven't been on YouTube for a while. I've been away sleeping. It's been freezing. And then we had like a little bit of sunshine and all the birds were out and about, and then freezing again. We're in spring now, but it's not too bad tonight. We'll see what happens, I guess, because then we'll be complaining about the heat. But imagine that guy walking into the desert. Yeah. Well, you're in far north Queensland, aren't you, passerby? That's I miss it. I was thinking the other day I was in so much pain. I wanted to go up there and live up there, you know. Australia's got that you got different areas where you can go. If I had the money, I spend all my winters in Queensland. It's so good for pain. I didn't have any pain up there. It's so beautiful. Especially far up north, but I wouldn't venture into the desert. I mean, I've been on a bus, you know, and trains and driven around Australia, and some parts are so remote. I live in a remote part of Victoria, and the desert, I wouldn't even go with my car across the desert. People do it. There's a little town that you go to near Mildura, and you go across the desert. And I thought, nah. Yeah, Mildura is a beautiful town in northern Victoria. And it's by the river there, the Yarra. But I had a 4-wheel drive, and we were going to go 2 or 3 cars. I wouldn't venture out on my own. I'm normally on my own anyway, driving around. Oh yeah, leave the desert. I mean, the Aborigines even that's their land, you know. They know that's their country. But you know, I can't remember his name. Mildura, yeah, something like that. And I hear stories from different cultures in South America and all around the world, and people, like, when that's your land, you understand it. But I've been around Australia a little bit. Tasmania is amazing. And I don't even think they have trains in Tasmania. But Australia is beautiful to travel. So you're getting 35 Celsius in Vegas at the moment. That's still hot. Right. See, where passerby is, it's always 35, 36. In winter, they get in the 20s, don't you, passerby? But it's worth it. We get up to 50 Celsius. 45 is not too bad for me, but anything after 45 is bad for me. It's way too hot, you know. It's way too hot. How's me and my naps? Australia sleeps, but passerby is awake. The guy Michael at Tune In, he was in Victoria as well. Yeah, 45 is, but it's the feel of the temperature, you know, like when they say 50 degrees, but it feels like 100 bloody Celsius. Fahrenheit will be like 160, I think. But in Queensland is so nice. You get the heat and you get the cold at night. It's just so beautiful. I love it. The thing in Netherby, I have a half tank that I made a swimming pool. And I reckon that's bloody cool. Actually, I was looking at it the other day and thinking, my pool, swimming pool, oh wow, that's hot, 25 degrees at night. I think we got 12 degrees at the moment. It's 4:30 in the morning in Melbourne, Australia. I'm sure the dog and the cat will come in soon and ask to get out. The birds start singing. I normally go for a walk at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's nice. Nice and relaxing. No humans. But it's going to be busy long weekend in Australia, holiday today. And then we have the Australian football tomorrow. It's going to be so cool. It's so funny, like we get hot in Australia and all around the world is cold. And then when you guys are cold, we're hot. Northern and Southern Hemisphere is so interesting. I've never been to the Northern Hemisphere. But I had a dream one day that I was asleep and I woke up and I saw the stars and they were all in the wrong spot. And that's when I realized I was in the Northern Hemisphere because I could see the stars were different. Look at my halo. Such a beautiful drop, you know. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, the football in Australia changed. They put too many rules. I can't remember last time I saw a match. Plus, I follow Essendon. And the Bombers, they haven't done well in football for a long time. So, even the rugby, you know, I was watching the Broncos. The rugby Australia. Oh, in Chile, South America. Chile is the same as here. Well, all of South America is the same as Australia. Well, I'm glad we shared our story together. Hopefully, it won't get banned, but normally the ABC is pretty cool with the ABC is pretty good with privacy, like it's no worries. Plus, you know, I always let people know what channel it is and where I got it from, so you can go and tune in there if if you want to watch it. I like the ABC. It feels like home to me. They're not all done up makeup and bullshit news reporters. They're like everyday people. And they keep us informed. I got the newsletter from the Wimmera. And small towns in Australia make you feel alive. Better than a city, I reckon. They have so many things always happening, you know, they've got markets and they've got festivals, cinemas. We have school holidays here at the moment. So, oh yeah, you told me you're watching, yeah. It's incredible. Oh, right, Thomas. Good on you. Yeah, it'll be like 3 o'clock in the morning in Ireland, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's a good story. The ABC has good shows. I like a current affairs in Australia as well. But welcome. Welcome to Gracie's Halo channel. It's Saint Grace. Santa Graciela. Yeah, but some of the stories in Australia, especially the outback, are crazy, man. You know, how do you get into the Australian desert? 5 a.m. Wow. But anyway, my darlings, it's going to show my tree and then I drop the phone. But yeah, it's nice. Bit of colour. And I'll be watching the rugby as well, Thomas. I got a sleepy face now. It's the same face. You know what? I'm almost 60 years old. And I thought, I don't have a lot of wrinkles. Not bad. For an old bag. Yeah. You too, Thomas. And passerby. And I'll see you soon. I'm going to make a coffee and I might go to Kmart. 24-hour Kmart. Oh, so good to see you, passerby. Because I know you're awake sometimes because of the times. I'm never ready for a live. I just go live. Effort. Melinda. Are you awake? Melinda's in Victoria. Hey, Melinda. Oh, did you have to let the dog out or something? My Melinda. She's so cute. Bloody gravity. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm the same. It's not my job. It's my recovery. But oh, sweetheart. Well, it's good to see you, Melinda. Oh, you couldn't sleep, sweetheart. Not so bad. I normally sleep really cool, but I fell asleep at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I woke up at 9:30 at night. So I was bloody wide awake. I didn't know what the hell was going on. But because we had cold and then we had hot, like a couple of hot mornings, and I was out early, I think I started sneezing, and that's when you get cold, and a cold. But we just watched, I just put a documentary. I don't know if you want to start from the beginning, but you know that story when the guy walked into the desert in 1999 in Broome, and all he found was his bike, and then the bloke just went in and went for a walk, and they found him after 43 days, and he was alive. And then everybody started having a crack at him for being a D-head and thinking that he could survive in the Australian desert. And he was costing a lot of money, 10 grand a day back in the day. People trying to find themselves and the meaning of life. Sit in your backyard and, I don't know, put some earplugs in or something. I mean, I've gone into the desert and I've gone off grid and I've gone up a mountain just to breathe fresh air and stuff, but there's always communities around that get worried when people go missing, and then there's search parties and everything. So anyway, well, that's that. Sorry, the phone just left me, and then it went upside down, and then it went sideways. So funny. Nah, well, that's the thing, you know. There are hot chili peppers. Well, you think of the scorpions and the snakes and all the stuff in there, and the spiders and actually the ants. Imagine you're asleep and you got the red ants coming to your face and inside your nose and stuff. The bull ants and the red ants and the fire ant. Oh, the fire ants. Oh my God, that hurt. Nah. Even camping, I've got my gear set up so there's no animals coming into the tent. No way. Nah. Australia, I mean, we don't have any bears and lions and, you know. For the Americans, bulldog ants. Yeah, gosh. Actually, I had ants work in my compost. They're really great. But they were far away from me. And they're good vacuum cleaners. Like if you drop crumbs and stuff, the ants, they're late risers. They get up really late, around 11 in the morning. And they get out and they clean your floors. So because I didn't have electricity, the ants will clean my floors and work my compost. It's really bloody cool. But Australia is not a country that you just wander out in the middle of nowhere and don't tell someone where you're going. There are points where you tell people, especially if you're going to cross the bloody desert and leave your push bike, for people to find it and freak the hell out and spend thousands of dollars trying to find someone that venture out trying to find themselves and get lost. Whatever. Anyway, my sweet darlings, Google the bulldog ants that passerby said. It's crazy. Yeah, there are a lot of poisonous stuff in Australia, especially in the water. And you're walking along the beach and then you think it's a rock and then you step on it and then it'll kill you. That's the first thing that freaked me out when I went out of the beach here. I was wearing shoes. Because there's crustaceans. And when you go into the rock pools, you find things in the rock pools in Australia that are stonefish. Yeah, that's the one, stonefish. And the redback spider doesn't venture out, but I heard it's very painful. Snakes, well, I've seen snakes. I'm not scared of snakes, but the place where this guy went, there's red belly black, there's black spiders, there's black snakes, the desert, the scorpions. I mean, you gotta be a bit loco, no? Un poco loco, a little bit crazy to venture out into the Australian desert, or just where passerby comes from. There's places up there in Queensland that are bloody dangerous. And they're little creatures that kill you here. They're not huge. And then you've got Bigfoot and the Yowie and all the mystical creatures that I reckon they're around there. And you think you can climb a tree and be safe, and all the creatures that will kill you will be up the tree with you. Life artist. Yeah, that's her name, passed by, life artist. Her name is Shannon. But yeah, well, similar to Enrique and Juan and Jose and todos, I was going to do a live in Spanish and another one in Italian. Not to be rude to all my family and friends que hablan español. But, yeah. I'll see what I do. Maybe I'll cook some breakfast. Or maybe I'll go out for breakfast. McDonald's is 24/7. I haven't been to Macca's for a long time. Maybe years. Like going into the shop, you know. Yeah, I probably sleep all day, laugh artist. I'm changing my time like a toddler. Sleeping long naps but it's great seeing you guys, and I think I'm glad I did that story for you guys. And it's a different one. And it makes you wonder, and it gives you opinions. People have opinions, you know, and beliefs, and I don't fight with anyone. I just go along with life and breathe and eat and sleep, and it's easier. All right, my sweets. That's it from me. My clock is... I read something else, but that's alright. It's late. It's 5 a.m. The sun is up soon. Sayonara. Adios. Au revoir. Bye-bye. Love you guys. Thank you for being here with me. It really helps my day. Adios, Thomas. He's probably listening doing the garden. Carolina went to work. And everybody that tunes in later. Good seeing y'all. Bye.